Okay. Good morning, everybody. Um, I, as I've done usually on Friday, I sort of was sort of I sort of had a plan on last Shabbos after I spoke on Friday, and this week was the Shema. But as the week went on, there were a couple of things that I saw reading in the paper and other things that I saw sort of made me want to sort of change course a little bit. And I'm going to do this, God willing, the Shema will be next week. So, but this week I decided, as I said, and maybe you'll get the idea as I go through it, you know, why I sort of changed course a little bit. Because after I spoke last week, I was talking about the Jewish history, and question occurred to me as I went through it. Jewish history, the temple, the whatever, the Bar Kokhba rebellion and Beitar. It was sort of you know I saw after I did it, I saw I'm not sure if I saw it on Wikipedia or someplace. There was a comment by a Roman historian. He might have been a general, Dio, I think his name was. And he said that in his comment on Beitar was that it was done by, we there was, I think he said it was a few 100,000, maybe 600,000 dead after the war, 3 year war, and that they let lie. And he said, it was a waste. Jews didn't have, Jews are in worse shape than we were before. What do? We shoot ourselves in the foot, kind of thing, as he was saying. He said that we're our own worst enemy. So I said, so I thought about that as I was going along. You know, we lost so many. Beitar was after it was with the Beitar. We was actually literally it was after Beitar. They were thrown out of what the Romans called, and it's the Romans calling it. They call it Palestina, Syria. They had changed the name. They were so fed up with us. They hated us after fighting two wars. And you remember Beitar? After for Beitar, Bar Kokhba at first it was winning. Okay, and they needed. I think this Dio said that they brought in 8 legions. 8 legions. That that's how dangerous it was to take down to end the revolt. The Romans would never let a province go out into nothing. They just wouldn't do it. I think maybe said that last week, but I'm going to repeat it. That's who they were. They weren't going to lose. Okay, all right. If you think about sports teams not losing, they weren't going to lose. This wasn't a sport to them. This was heavy business that they were not going to lose. So the thought occurred to me, was it our leadership that sort of led us down, I don't know, say a rabbit hole or whatever it was? Was it something worth doing, even though we lost? We showed them, boy, did we show them, but in the end, we're where we are today, partially because of the way they lost and the way they were scattered out. And the rabbis were forbidden to, they were forbidden to teach, to do what we're doing here. Learn Torah. We talk about Torah. Many organizes a Torah thing 5 days a week. He's got bagels and lots going to a Yankee. This, many, you would be thrown in jail for this, for doing what you're doing here by the Romans. Okay? We're here in the free United States. I'd be thrown in jail too. I remember when I said it in one of my classes and when I did it when I went to Patterson. And they all looked at me and they said, they're gonna come and get you? And I, and I kind of chuckled. So the question was leadership. What's our leadership like? And I saw, as I went through looking at stuff. So in Parshas Pinchas, there were two times where, shut up. Let me turn my phone off so it doesn't ring again. Yeah, now it's off. Okay. So anyway, I looked in Parshas Pinchas, and there were two times where I'm not going to say both times were leaders, but there were two times when I guess they were leaders. You saw in Parshas Pinchas what happens at the very beginning, the end of Parshas Balak. You had the incident of of Zimri and what her name was Cosby, I think, um, who make display, a sexual display, you want to call it, in front of the people. And Pinchas Hashem puts out a plague, as I guess it was. He wasn't they weren't the only two doing those kind of things. 24,000 people died, and Pinchas comes and ends it by killing them. So when I looked up that incident, see some commentary on it. Um, Moshe was sitting there kind of watching. He wasn't sure what to do. Why? But Pinchas, in his zeal, which is the word I think that you see comes up, he kills them both, the two main protagonists there. And but the commentators said, wait a second. If Zimri had been watching and wasn't involved with her, and he had seen him coming, and he had killed him, but as he was coming to get him, Zimri wouldn't have been at fault. You're encouraged, I guess, to protect yourself. And other parts of the commentary on that situation was that he acted without, I guess, Moshe's there busy setting up this whole system of us, of courts and things like that we're going to rule us, and he sort of went around that. He was a vigilante in the terms of if you watch, if in old Western terms, he was a vigilante, wanted dead or alive. If you bring him in dead, he's just as good. You get the reward, and he got a reward. Uh, he kills him, he gets a reward. He becomes a Kohen. He becomes a Kohen, and and he brings peace. So it's a Kohen. It's a the bris. He gets a bris of a Kohen, and so there were problems of that kind of I guess you could call it zealotry. Uh, and we see also that with Eliyahu Novi, I won't get into the whole story, but he sets up a demonstration of God's power on Har Carmel. What does he do? And Hashem shows whatever, but he is such a zealot that he goes to and he goes and Hashem basically tells him after he goes to Har Sinai and whatever he goes and Hashem tries to tell him that he's that the violence, this whole idea of the violence of acting on your own, going away from the temple because you weren't supposed to do demonstrations or like that outside the temple. So what was he going to do? Um, And so he chooses Elisha to be his successor, And Eliyahu Hanavi, we don't even know if, is sort of condemned to the life of going around and he's at all of our bar mitzvahs. He's at a bris. He's there at Pesach. That's his job to wander around in eternity, to be there with the Jewish people, to see how we do things. And and then also you can note that in the Beis Hamikdash the for the destruction, why does Yochanan ben Zakkai leave? Because because the zealots are determined. Again, the zealots are determined to fight, even though that he's convinced that they're going to lose. That was one form, if you want to say that the zealot, that kind of thing is if you want to call it leadership. That's what it was. That was one form of leadership in Parshas Pinchas. The other one involves Moshe. And it involves Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu goes to Hashem, or and he tells him after Hashem said, "You're not going into the land." Probably he had made his pleas that we hear about in Parshas Eschanan, which was in last week's Parsha, but it probably had been done then. And he says, I need a successor. What does Hashem, and what does Hashem say? He says, he tells Hashem, in your heart, in your heart of hearts, you know who's here, and you need to pick somebody who's going to succeed me, who's going to take the people into the land. It's a completely different process of thing. This is going to be the leader. This is a different. Um, Pinchas isn't going to disappear. He's still there. In fact, he even gets a couple of jobs to do later on that aren't as involved. And he says, "May the Lord." What does Moshe say? He says, May the Lord, the God of spirits of all flesh, appoint a man over this community to go out and before them, and one who will lend them and lead them into the land." And the choice turns out to be, of course, we know, is Yehoshua. Um, so why? And the question comes down to, Moshe did want one of his sons to be to get the job. That's what he wanted. He wanted one of his sons to get the job. But Hashem says, nope. The guy who is with you, who was up on the mountain with you, who's your right hand man, he fought the Amalekites. He was on the mountain waiting for you to come down with the tablets. That's he was in your tent. He was in the setting up and doing whatever you needed to be done. That's your follower. That's the guy who you want to be in charge. And perhaps even Hashem in his wisdom knew about an event that would happen. And I saw this. I was kind of shocked at this because I had seen this before. This is from Sefer Shoftim, chapter 18, and down around line 30, I guess it is. And what does it say? It says in line 30, it says, "And the children of Dan," there was what the incident was that there was a priest who was doing some priestly duties, and the children for a family, and the children of Dan come and sort of ask him to come and join them. And the person was Yonatan Ben Gershom. Gershom was one of Moshe, one of Moshe's sons. But the text, my English translation, says the son of Manasseh. And both he and his sons were priests to the tribe of the Danites until the exile. And what does the footnote say about the word Manasseh? The son was that the son of Manasseh, what does Rashi say? He says, out of respect for Moses, Moshe, Mem Shin Hey, they added in, and if you have your text, in fact, I was even surprised I would have put it up could have put it up uh, on Wikipedia. They sort of have this little nun that's added, Mem Nun Shin Hey, Menashe. Um, Put in there. They say Rashi says it's out of respect. In fact, here the nun is sort of kind of lifted up. It says that Rashi says that it was Gershom ben Menashe, one of Moshe's sons that got that. But he would do tshuva. That he was, and I guess Hashem in His wisdom understood what the future would be. That he would not, he might stray a little bit off the track, even if he was going to come back. And that wasn't somebody who was going to lead the Jews into the promised land. Um, so you get that a feeling that the person who if I have in here that I was going to look at, um, yes, that the leadership is going to pass on Yoshua, but then again, we know that Yoshua really didn't have a a follower. He came in, they conquered the land, or they conquered most of the land, and not everything was conquered. And Yehoshua wouldn't. We don't. They say that he married Rachab, the woman that the spies that hide the spies that he sends out, but there was no children. So there's no. Um, there is no. There was no following. But Yehoshua, the what I was trying to show, I think, hopefully I can get this straight. The contrast is basically the contrast between Joshua, who is a worker, so to speak, and the zealots, who sometimes people do follow zealots, and they do develop strong followings, uh, but they're not really supposed to be the ones that we're going to that we will follow. There's a there's this idea that, that in our system that we have set up to as Jews to the Torah that was given to Moshe to be handed down, and we're going to sort of follow it, and it's going to lead us to the future, and whoever is attached to it and learns from it is going to be will eventually be the leaders. And I going to put this out here. And this is, the tradition is summed up. Our tradition, our following of the Torah, and how we're going to and how we're supposed to rule ourselves and govern ourselves is with the Torahs. And what's his name? In this essay, the Rambam is quoted. There are three crowns of the Torah: the Torah of Torah, priesthood, and the crown of kingship. In other words, there is a kind of a, I hate to use the phrase, pretty much where they got the idea for a separation of the powers. The crown of priesthood was given to Aaron, and that was going to pass on to him, pass on to his descendants. The crown of kingship was conferred on David and his successors, but the crown of Torah is for all Israel. Whoever wishes, let him come and take it. So the point is that we have a system, a method that we're supposed to be following, we're supposed to learn from, and our leaders should reflect on those values. The idea of a zealot like Pinchas, or especially him as the prime example, is really not the way we're supposed to go. We're not supposed to be following the hotheads, so to speak. Sometimes the hotheads want to. One of the things that I want, sometimes the hotheads want to tear down the system. I think that they have a better way to go. Usually it doesn't work. Even I noticed even in the secular world of Washington, I see what some of the splinter groups want to do without getting political. I don't want to get political, but you don't tearing down the system usually doesn't work. It just makes for more chaos. And as the zealots made so much chaos that we lost our temple. That is probably the worst thing that you could say happened, because through that and everything else, we're here and we're sitting there last Thursday. It seems like a month ago, but it was really last Thursday. Here we were mourning the temple that they tore down because they hated each other and they fought with each other and they couldn't decide, and they couldn't get their act together. Maybe they could have made a deal, they could have done something. But the zealots basically wanted to destroy, wanted a fight. They were itching for a fight, and they got a fight. And then perhaps even though Bar Kokhba did get later on, about 70 years later, even though even Bar Kokhba had support from people like Rabbi Akiva and others, it wasn't a wholehearted 100% in on it, that fighting the Romans, even though in both cases with the Romans, even though that they wanted, even though they wanted the Romans out and they wanted to be in charge of the land, the Romans weren't going to let it happen, and they didn't accept that, and they were willing to go down fighting. Now, of course, without the temple, we're here, and we've had many other tragedies that have come along on Tisha B'Av. Probably the next great Tisha B'Av tragedy after Beitar was in 1492. As Columbus is sailing to the New World, the Jews are getting tossed out. They're leaving. They're going to various places along the Mediterranean. Um, so we have the calamities of that have happened since then have happened because the zealots didn't stand down and perhaps allow cooler heads to prevail. Um, so wanting a fight is great, but not if you're not going to win. The Romans were never going to let them win. I guess they just didn't realize it. I'm not sure, if we took a poll now as to how many people sitting here which side you would be on, I don't know. Maybe we would want to fight, even though we would go down fighting. Um, but I just wanted to say that, you know, our leadership and our choices and the way we govern ourselves, leadership, and I think is an important part of the of what we do here. Okay, what we do elsewhere. As I said to the Romans at that time, what we're doing right now would have gotten us all arrested and thrown in the brig or whatever the Romans did. Maybe some of us would have been tortured. I don't know. So um, our choices are important to us, and so is our leadership. Um, anyway, any questions? Any comments? Okay,
I think Rabbi Mark was, I don't know, you were by Mincha last night also. He was saying something about in 1492 when they got expelled, they were playing all, the Jews were playing
Yeah,
all.
I, read- yes, because they reckon they, yes, and I've read that, and I've seen had other comments on it. The reason for that was that they knew what was going on. They understood that they're getting thrown out, that this was not going to be a happy thing, and the object was to kind of lift the spirits up. So even though that we don't listen to music and sing and dance on Tisha B'av, you know, they had to have a way to get out. They were going to march out. I guess maybe it was a sense of showing their defiance. Where you're treating us like dirt, but we're going to sing and dance and whatever. It's a lot of that goes into this whole idea that the leadership sort of took them out. I don't know how many people here, some people may be able to even trace their ancestry back to that time. I don't know. I think I actually may have had a great great grandparent who may have come from that idea because some things that I've learned about things. So it's a matter of we handle it, and the key in Tisha B'av and all the Tisha B'avs that have come is our memory. That we remember that what happened back there. We have an understanding of I guess the sinus klinam, the baseless hatred that caused our woes. If we had been able to get along in the temple between, I guess, I think I read it was between the Pesach and the Tisha B'av, that 3 month period, that there wasn't much peace in the temple behind the wall. They were burning the food. They had food to last for years. But they didn't have to do anything. They could have waited the Romans out, made the Romans whatever. They didn't have to go out and fight them and force the issue. Um, so but as I said, the zealots, they wanted it. They're itching for a fight, and that's the kind of thing that what I'm saying is that we know we have everything. One thing that not all of us. I think Nats Levi. I don't know how many others people here are. The Kohan, and they have certain rules and functions and things like that to do, the Kohanim. But the rest of us have one thing that we all can do, and that's the crown of Torah. And what I'm saying is that's the key. I think that's the key to what we're doing, in spite of the fact that because why? Because the Romans realized, as it was realized by other people before them, who are enemies, that that a bris and Torah and kashrus take away those things, and you could break the Jewish people. There have been laws that have been trying to pass about, at various times about, no bris milah. The problem with that is that the Muslims do it too. But the other things, if they wanted to do that, they would try to break us. It'd be an attempt, literally, to break us. And we're still here. The bottom line is we're still here. We're still here. And we have a third. third third Commonwealth, the third Commonwealth. That's there, and the, yesterday, and I think it was yesterday, one of the days of the Wall Street Journal, well, the Post, I think that I got, there was an article from the rabbi at the Jewish Center, and he was writing almost on behalf of the Jews of the Jewish Center, but the man who was knifed walking out of the shul was from the Jewish Center, and he was writing about what's going on there, um, the demonization of the Jews in New York City. How Mamdani says, I won't tolerate anti-Semitism, and then he goes and bashes and says, well, they should arrest him and things like that. It's part of the thing that prompted me to kind of switch gears a little bit and to do this sort of sort of on the fly. I hope you forgive me for that. But that's the key. That's part of the reason why I kind of switched gears a little bit on this. But next week I've had some things, as I've said the Shema over the years, and some of the sources that I looked at over Shabbos last week and on Sunday before I switched gears, you know, on the Shema and the various parts of it and the various interest to it and what comes before it and after it and how it all kind of fits in. So, Mendy, you could put you have your topic for next week, and unless you want me to write it down and send it to you.
What the Shema?
Talk about the Shema and what's
Okay,
before it
good.
and after. Shema is the topic. I'm gonna
Okay,
do
very
what I was gonna do. I'll do next week what I would have done today, but I kind of switched the gears to talk about leadership and how we have to proceed and be careful on who we choose and what they're going to do and what we want them to do. And I think our leadership is very important in Israel in Israel. We don't have as much say there, but we do have here on how we're going to handle things. And I hope in New York City that they figure out, they get their act together and elect the right people, even the right governor. As I said, I don't want to be political, but I try not to be, and I'm breaking my rules. Anyway, that's your topic for next week, Mandy.
Hey, thank you.
And good Shabbos to everybody. And
Good Shabbos, Sam.
good
Shabbos, Tim.
Shabbos
Thank you
and
very
Good
much.
Bola.
Shabbos, Mandy.
Good
Good
Shabbos.
Shabbos, Nathan.
Hey, good Shabbos, everyone. Have
Good
a great
Shabbos, Yossi
weekend.
and Rivka and Yossi.
Jay.